Hi there. Let's talk about spike testing today. Today we will touch upon what is spike testing, what is goal about spike testing, and how to do the spike testing. And we'll take one real-time scenario that I have run through Jmeter, and we'll analyze the results and see how to analyze the spike testing results, and advantages and disadvantages of the spike testing, and finally we'll close the discussion after validating or understanding what are the tools for a spike testing available in the industry. So what exactly the spike testing is all about. The spike testing is a type of a performance testing in which application is tested with the extreme increment and decrement in the load. So basically, say whenever you are running any test, so basically you would want to have say maximum number of users are coming, and immediately you are taking to the normal state of the execution. Then you'll analyze the result, how the behavior of the server. So that is what is all about the spike testing is. So in the later stages we'll take one of the example, and we'll understand how spike testing needs to be run, then how to plan, and all those things we can touch upon that. The goal of the spike testing is to see how the system responds for unexpected behavior. Spike testing helps the system performance will decline when there is a sudden high load, and when the load is diminished, and how the server will behave. That kind of behavior we can understand from the spike testing. So the another goal of the spike testing is to determine the recovery time. This is very important time. This is a very important aspect indeed. So between two successive spikes, so you have put the server or assisting for the maximum load, and post that, and you have exponentially you have drastically reduced the load on the server. Then how the spike, then what is the response, or what is the time duration it has taken to get into the stabilized mode. So these are all things we can let's take one example, and we'll touch upon on this. So before we get into the spike testing results, or rather spike testing analysis, so how do we plan the spike testing? So simple. Basically you have to determine the maximum load capacity for the software application. So basically the one, whatever the example I'm taking now, so we see that this application has the 250 virtual user maximum user it could handle. So in this scenario I have taken 250 users as an example, and just to give a reflection for the step 1 to determine the maximum user load. So basically you have to first determine what is the maximum load capacity that your application could handle. Then the second step is to prepare the testing environment and configure the record performance parameters. What are the things you would like to monitor, and you have to plan. So basically here in this case, if you look at this, the scenario is 250 virtual users. I have ramped it for I have in 30 seconds they are ramping up, and they will run for 100 seconds. Then after suddenly after 10 seconds, they will take another 10 seconds to ramp down. And meanwhile, so basically after 100 seconds, so we would have only around 50 virtual users. I have taken this 50 virtual users because if you look at this, for the 50 virtual users, whatever the application I am running through, it is really goes smooth. So we are not expecting any error code 500, that's internal server error or any error. So that's the reason I am expecting when the application is run on 50 virtual users, I'm expecting the server to behave the way it is behaving earlier. Okay, so then give a general picture. What are the examples? Say, for example, you are doing a load testing for load testing for one of the e-commerce website. Say you have Black Friday, or rather year-end sale going on. So maximum number of users will come on board for a particular time, and immediately that offer is completed, you will see a substantial reduction in the users on the server. So in that case, how the system behaves, so this is basically is a very helpful in terms of getting this kind of especially people like Amazon, Flipkart, they do a year-end sale. During that span of a time, the maximum millions of people will get on board, and they will purchase, and they will after the closure of the offer, they will again, you will see the business as usual. So in that case, how our system behaves to monitor such kind of a thing, this spike test would definitely help us. And now let's take one of the example, the one what I was talking about. So basically, just to give kind of a background about this test. So as I pointed out earlier, for 50 virtual users on this server, it's pretty good. So we do not see any error codes. This we have ran it for a 1 hour, everything is fine, so we could see only the success code. So then even we have run one more test for 250 users. There system usually gives the internal server error. So that is then what we could understand from that is 250 users is a maximum user. So I'm just giving this information just to kind of give the importance of the what 5 steps we discussed earlier in this session. So now say scenario 1 here, what scenario 1 does is, say we have 250 virtual users ramping up in 30 seconds, and they will keep serving on server for 100 seconds, and they have been ramped down in 10 seconds, and for next 200 seconds only 50 virtual users will be active, and they subsequently rested after 10 seconds. So this basically 250 virtual users, then immediately we are reducing it to 50 virtual users, and we are running that 50 virtual user test for a 200, and then we are trying to analyze what exactly happening. So now let's analyze this graph. So the first ramp up, all good. So here you see this red. So basically this red is 200. So basically that is a success code. So we could see that till all virtual users are ramped up, everything is fine. So when we had 250 users, then we server started throwing the 500. That's the internal server error. So for next say 200 or seconds, we do not see any successful transaction. So we do not say, I mean, it's almost zero. So basically the system or rather server was completely giving 500 as that's the internal server error. Then after that, when we again reduced the number of users on the server, then we could see that it took almost around 40 odd seconds to come to its normal stage, and it came recovered. Rather, this is what we were talking about, what is the time it would take to get back to its, or rather to restore to its original conditions. So it took around 40 odd seconds to restore to it original condition. Then after that we could see that there are few more 500. This is what something we can really make a note of this, because as I have pointed out earlier, for 50 virtual users when we ran, there was no 500, but however due to this spike load or due to this spike testing, there is a little bit stress on the server. so still it is producing 500 internal server errors. That is something we could analyze from this test. So I hope this really helped us in terms of understanding what spike test and how to plan and how to come up on the scenarios, how to decide on the scenarios. And after this, let's talk about what are the advantages and disadvantages of this. So advantages, basically the performance of the software must be maintained at any cost. However, there is an extreme increase in the load of the system. There is a high chance of issues. Spike testing help in such scenarios. I mean, as I have pointed out earlier, we could definitely it would help us in terms of, say, you are doing the year-end sale and you want to understand. I mean, that business pattern is very much needed. That's a very helpful, or rather this gives the helpful insight about your system, understanding how your system behaves. So it's a costly to do such kind of a testing, but it really a business driven, and it return of investment is definitely huge. See, I mean, in the standard testing method, the bad to worst case scenario may not be addressed. However, ignoring them does not mean that they will never occur. I mean, you don't know. I mean, you just can't predict what is the user behavior on your application. So such testing would definitely ease the pressure from the business to rather to build, from the engineering team actually, to build a system which can handle such kind of scenarios. I mean, I think these are the basically advantages and disadvantages. That's something we could think. And from the disadvantages point of view, it's a really going to be a costly affair. So that's something we'll have to think. It's a very, very, very costly, as I pointed out earlier. So now let's talk about what are the tools available in the market to do this. So I mean, basically there are the test, whatever the report you could see now, this was run by using the Jmeter. So Jmeter is something you can use. You can plan your test, then and you can analyze the result. And there is one more definitely the most favorite tool for everyone. That's a load runner. That's load runner, something that also we can use it for achieving this kind of testing. So now let's conclude what we have decided. Just let's touch upon what are the things we decided, or what are the things we have discussed. So just to in the early stage we talked about what is spike testing. Just to in a closing note, spike testing is a software performance testing method. In this method, applications are tested with the unusual, or rather unusual increment and the decrements in the load, and we'll have to analyze how the system or other server behaves. And the right approach to do spike testing is to unexpectedly increase the number of users, followed by an immediate decrease in the load, and understand and rather measure what is the time required to get your system to a normal. And the unexpected load is the main attribute of the test. So this is unexpected. This is something you'll have to discuss with your business or discuss with your engineering team, and get the what is the number, or rather what is the value, that's something you want to note, or rather you want to test upon. Then examples of real testing. So definitely at earlier stages I pointed out, in one of the e-commerce, say you are running one of the sale, and then you want to test how the system behaves. So, and Jmeter is one of the Jmeter and load runner, something we can use it to do this. I think hope this helps, and see you in the next topic. Thanks.